She is known by many as the cruelest vampire to have ever existed, more sadistic and ruthless than Vlad Tepes himself, the infamous Count Dracula. Yes, you've likely heard of her, Elizabeth Báthory, the Blood Countess, a woman who, according to legend, turned her castle into a true scene of horrors. But is everything they say about her true? Why would such a powerful and influential figure become one of the most notorious names in the history of terror? In this video, we'll travel to 16th century Hungary, a place where power knew no bounds and where rumors could destroy reputations or hide dark truths. We'll delve into Elizabeth's origins, her alleged crimes, and the theories that challenge everything you think you know about her. Was she a ruthless murderer or a victim of the political intrigues of her time? And if you enjoy stories filled with mystery, power, and cruelty, get ready. What you're about to discover might change everything you believe about the Blood Countess. Stay with us until the end of this video because you won't want to miss a single detail of this chilling tale. Hungary in the 16th century. To understand who Elizabeth Báthory was, it is essential to return to the historical context of her time. In the 16th century, Hungary was a territory in constant conflict, divided among the Ottoman Empire, the Kingdom of the Habsburgs, and the Principality of Transylvania. The region experienced geopolitical and religious tensions. While Catholicism and Protestantism vied for influence, the feudal system consolidated the power of the nobility, creating a deeply unequal society. It was in this turbulent setting that Elizabeth was born in 1560 in the town of Báthory in Transylvania. The daughter of an influential Protestant family, she grew up surrounded by privilege and responsibility. From an early age, she received a refined education, learning languages such as Hungarian, Latin, and Greek, rare skills for women of her era. However, her childhood was not without difficulties. Elizabeth suffered from seizures and fits of rage, conditions that the medicine of the time barely understood. These health issues aroused curiosity and fear among those around her. Some speculated that her erratic behavior was a sign of supernatural influences or even family curses. However, it is also possible that these episodes were exacerbated by a family environment as powerful as it was dysfunctional. The combination of exceptional education and the shadow of psychological problems shaped an intriguing, enigmatic, and dark personality. Moreover, the power wielded by her Protestant family in a predominantly Catholic region further intensified the tensions surrounding her figure. Transylvania, considered a strategic point, was at the center of political and religious disputes, placing the young Elizabeth in a position of both privilege and vulnerability. It was a world where power and fear went hand in hand, and Elizabeth grew up learning to navigate this dangerous terrain. This, combined with her position of privilege, shaped a complex and enigmatic personality. The beginning of the tragedy. Elizabeth Báthory was only 15 years old when she married Ferenc Nadasdy, a man 11 years her senior and infamous for his brutality on the battlefield, earning him the title of the Black Knight. The union between Elizabeth and Ferenc was strategically arranged, strengthening political alliances between two powerful noble families. Although she was a young woman with an extensive education, Elizabeth now found herself in a world even more marked by intrigue and violence. Letters exchanged between the couple revealed that Ferenc not only tolerated Elizabeth's severity, but also encouraged it. Ferenc's absence, due to military campaigns, left Elizabeth in absolute control of the family's estates. This period marked the beginning of escalating behaviors that would transform her reputation into infamy. Workers and servants of the castle began reporting extremely harsh punishments, creating an atmosphere of fear and submission. Elizabeth, it seems, embraced her position of authority with an iron fist, something that started to spark rumors about her true nature. The Castle of Cachtice, which initially symbolized the wealth and prestige of the Cachtice family, gradually became a place of mystery and terror. Small reports of disappearances and inhumane punishments began to circulate among nearby villages. While Elizabeth managed the lands, she also solidified a reputation that caused her to be feared by both her servants and the local population. The death of Ference in 1604 was a turning point. Without her husband, Elizabeth became even more independent and, according to witnesses of the time, also more cruel. The absolute power she wielded as a noble widow allowed her to act without significant consequences, reinforcing her fame as a dark figure. Thus, what began as rumors of strict discipline evolved into disturbing stories that, over time, cemented her place in history as the Blood Countess. The quest for eternal youth. The crimes attributed to Elizabeth Báthory continue to shock due to their cruelty and the number of victims involved. Historical accounts indicate that Elizabeth lured young peasant girls to Cachtice Castle with promises of work and protection. However, these girls, usually between the ages of 10 and 14, ended up trapped in a cycle of suffering. The methods included beatings, burnings, and brutal punishments, which turned the castle into a true scene of horrors. Witnesses report that many of these girls did not survive to tell their stories. The extreme violence did not stop there. According to testimonies collected during investigations, Elizabeth used needles to inflict suffering on her victims, in addition to subjecting them to icy baths in the harsh Hungarian winter, which often led to death by hypothermia. There are also records of bodies being left to decompose in dungeons, creating an atmosphere of permanent terror in the castle. Such practices contributed to the consolidation of her infamy as the Blood Countess. One of the most persistent legends is that Elizabeth bathed in the blood of her victims to preserve her youth. Although this story is widely considered an exaggeration or even a fabrication, it reflects the image of a woman obsessed with beauty and power. This narrative, amplified over the centuries, helped transform Elizabeth into an almost mythological figure, solidifying the idea that Elizabeth Báthory was, in fact, a vampire. Despite the lack of concrete evidence regarding these supposed bloodbaths, the idea remains a central part of the myth. It is estimated that Elizabeth was responsible for the deaths of around 650 young girls, a number that, if true, would place her among the most prolific serial killers in history. However, historians still debate the accuracy of these figures, suggesting that some may have been inflated to justify her conviction. Regardless, the crimes attributed to Elizabeth Báthory remain one of the darkest chapters in European history, evoking horror and fascination to this day. The trial and imprisonment. The year 1610 marked the beginning of the end for Elizabeth Báthory. The accusations against her, which had been circulating for years, finally reached the ears of King Matthias II. Concerned by the magnitude of the rumors, the monarch ordered Georgi Thurzo, Palatine of Hungary and a man of his trust, to lead an official investigation. Thurzo assembled a team and, upon searching the castle of Cachtice, found shocking evidence: human remains and instruments of torture, which seemed to confirm macabre stories spreading throughout the region. The testimonies collected during the investigation were equally horrifying. More than 300 people, including servants, priests, and local residents, described the cruel acts committed by the Countess and her accomplices. The statements range from accounts of missing young girls to detailed descriptions of torture. Despite the extent of the accusations, the absence of written records directly linking Elizabeth to the crimes raised questions about the full credibility of the testimonies, fueling conspiracy theories. Due to her noble origin, Elizabeth escaped the death penalty, But this did not mean impunity. In 1611, she was sentenced to life imprisonment and confined to a room in her own castle. The conditions were severe. The makeshift cell had only small openings for light and air, and she had no contact with the outside world. Even so, the decision to spare her life sparked controversy, with many viewing it as an attempt to protect the reputation of the Hungarian nobility. While Elizabeth faced her solitary confinement, her accomplices met a far different fate. Dorothea Semtesh, Ilona Jo, Katerina Banica, and Janos Ujiri were tried and sentenced to death. The executions were public and brutal, serving as a clear message about the severity of their crimes. Elizabeth died in 1614 after 4 years of isolation, leaving behind a story full of mysteries and controversies. Serial killer or victim of conspiracy, the figure of Elizabeth Báthory is shrouded in mystery, and it is no surprise that many historians question the veracity of the crimes attributed to her. While some evidence points to a cruel murderer, others suggest that Elizabeth was the target of a political conspiracy. As a wealthy and Protestant woman in a predominantly Catholic society, she was seen as a dangerous anomaly. Her influence and control over vast properties could have represented a challenge to the established order, making her an ideal target for intrigue. The evidence presented against Elizabeth during her trial has been the subject of much debate. Many historians believe that testimonies gathered under torture were unreliable and that some material evidence, such as the bodies found, might have been fabricated. Moreover, the absence of direct records linking Elizabeth to the crimes raises suspicions about the true motivation behind her conviction. It was more convenient to paint her as a murderer to justify the seizure of her lands and wealth. Another controversial point is the issue of gender. In a time when women rarely held political or economic power, Elizabeth was an unusual figure. Her status as a wealthy and independent widow placed her in a vulnerable position, open to attacks. Many believe her wealth and influence were seen as threats by her male contemporaries, and the accusations of monstrous crimes were used to discredit her and remove her from the political stage. Finally, the transformation of Elizabeth Báthory into a myth, portraying her as a creature of the night, such as a vampire, has also contributed to the perpetuation of doubts about her guilt. Stories about her alleged bloodbaths and extreme cruelty were amplified over the centuries, often without concrete historical basis. This raises the question: was Elizabeth truly the greatest serial killer of her time, or was she a victim of circumstances and a system that could not tolerate powerful women? The debate remains open, keeping her story alive and controversial. The legend that endures. The figure of Elizabeth Báthory has transcended the boundaries of history and entered the popular imagination, establishing herself as one of the most controversial and enigmatic characters of all time. Her supposed obsession with blood and the crimes attributed to her have inspired countless literary and cinematic adaptations. Works exploring horror and the supernatural often find in Elizabeth a starting point, associating her with the vampire myth and the insatiable quest for eternal youth. These narratives, though often exaggerated, perpetuate the idea of a woman who lived between reality and legend. The Castle of Cachtice, which was the stage for the accusations and mysteries, today attracts visitors from all over the world. Its ruins evoke both the grandeur of the past and the horror that permeates the legend of the Blood Countess. Tourists and historians search this site for traces of truth, hoping to better understand who Elizabeth Báthory was. Furthermore, the aura of mystery surrounding her story continues to be explored in documentaries, reinforcing her position as one of the most controversial figures of medieval Europe. Over the centuries, the line between fact and fiction in Elizabeth's case has grown increasingly blurred. For some, She was an unprecedented murderer whose actions defy any rational explanation. For others, she was a victim of the circumstances and the political context of her time, used as a scapegoat by those seeking power and wealth. This duality is what makes her story so fascinating and still so relevant today. The Blood Countess is a fascinating example of how history and legend intertwine, creating narratives that continue to intrigue us centuries later. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any content. See you next time